Yeah, so here we are in 2Esdras, and today we're going to get into chapter 4. All right. 2Esdras 4:1, and it reads, "And the angel that was sent unto me, whose name is Uriel, gave me an answer." And so hereby we see what angel that Ezra is actually dealing with. And it is Uriel. Uriel so happens to be the same angel, or at least one of the same angels that was sent to Enoch. You know, same angel that was sent to Noah. You know, so he's in some pretty good company, right? You know, and Uriel, we learned from Enoch that he was a watcher. In Enoch 20, verses 1 and 2, it says, "And these are the names of the holy angels who watch." What do they watch? They watch us. They watch over humanity. You know, verse 2 said, "Uriel, one of the holy angels who is over the world and over Tartarus." Now, Tartarus is one of the places that's beneath the earth. You know, and you know, it's the abode of the unclean spirits. You know, the demons, if you would. Alright, and then we have Enoch 79:6, which says, "Such is the picture and sketch of every luminary which Uriel the archangel, who is their leader, showed me." So he's also the leader of all the luminary type angels, if you would. You know, and all the luminaries in the heavens. You know, now he's quoted as being an archangel here, you know, which means a chief angel, and you know, which goes hand in hand with the next statement, who is their leader, you know, so showing them to be a chief angel, you know. And so that's just a little bit about Uriel, from whom all this information is coming from, that we read about in 2Esdras. All right, let me have my first reader read 2Esdras 4:2-5.
"And said, Thy heart hath gone too far in this world, and thinkest thou to comprehend the way of the Most High? Then said I, Yea, my Lord. And he answered me and said, I am sent to show thee 3 ways, and to set forth 3 similitudes before thee, whereof if you can declare me one, I will show thee also the way that you desire is to see. And I shall show thee from whence the wicked heart cometh. And I said, Tell on, my Lord. Then said he unto me, Go thy way, weigh me the weight of the fire, or measure me the blast of the wind, or call me again the day that is past."
Yeah. Anybody want to take a crack at that? You know, I can just see Ezra. He's already like, okay, come on, bring it on. Like, I got you. And then he hit him with, "Go weigh me the weight of fire." What? Measure me the blast of the wind. Huh? You know, go back to yesterday and you know, call me the day that passed. Yeah. You know, so Ezra, you know, he answers in verses 6-8, says, "Then answered I and said, What man is able to do that? And thou shouldest ask such things of me. And he said unto me, If I should ask thee how great dwellings are in the midst of the sea, or how many springs are in the beginning of the deep, or how many springs are above the firmament, or which are the outgoings of paradise, peradventure thou wouldst say to me, I never went down into the deep, nor as yet into HE double hockey sticks, neither did I climb up into heaven." You know, and then verses 9 and 10 says, "Nevertheless, now have I asked thee, but only of the fire and the wind and the day, wherethrough thou hast passed of these things from which thou canst not be separated. And yet canst thou give me no answer of them? And he said, Moreover unto me thine own things, and such as are grown up with thee, canst thou not know?" Like, you don't even know the stuff that you've been around all your life. You know, he like, you know, I didn't ask you about stuff that I knew you know, you didn't have access to. I asked you about stuff you've been around all your life. You can't answer me these things? Well, before we get into that, I want to focus on something, and that is what he said. He said, if I should ask you how great dwellings are in the midst of the sea, and how many springs are in the beginning of the deep, or how many springs are above the firmament, or which are the outgoings of paradise. You know, and so this is what he was saying. If I would have asked you these things, you know, then I know what you would have said. You've never been to these places. But what I want to call attention to is when he's reiterating these things, he says, like, yeah, you'll say that you never went down into the deep, nor yet into HE double hockey sticks. Neither did I ever climb up into heaven. And so, you know, when it's talking about the deep, you know, it was about the questions that he was asking about the sea and the deep. You know, and as to climbing up into heaven, you know, he's talking about the questions that he was talking about, the springs that's above the firmament. But then the other thing he says, the outgoings of paradise, yet when he reiterates, like, you know, I ain't asked you, you know, these things, he says, yet into HE double hockey sticks. And so that just kind of stood out to me, like, okay, well, the outgoings of paradise, what does that has to do with HE double hockey sticks? And so it goes back to what I was saying in verse 1, you know, whereas, well, maybe it wasn't verse 1. It was Enoch 20 verse 2, where I was speaking about Tartarus, and I was speaking about the places that's within the earth that Enoch teaches is within the earth, you know, and this wouldn't make sense not knowing what Enoch taught us about what's in the earth. You know, you're like, what does paradise have to do with HE double hockey sticks? But once you understand that there are diverse places in the earth, and that they're the abode of the dead, you know, the different types of dead, you know, then it makes sense, you know, because there are within the earth, you know, and make up Sheol, if you would, or Hades, you know, which are, you know, other places that's in the earth, you know, and so right along with them is paradise, you know, and so Enoch describing this in chapter 22 verses 2 and 3, it says, and there were 4 hollow places in it. And speaking about this mountain that was within the earth, he says there were 4 hollow places in it, deep and very smooth. 3 of them are dark, and 1 bright, and there was a fountain of water in its midst. And I said, how smooth are these hollow places, and deep and dark to view? Then Raphael answered, one of the holy angels who was with me, and said unto me, these hollow places have been created for this very purpose. What purpose? That the spirits of the souls of the dead should assemble therein. Yea, that all the souls of the children of men should assemble here. You know, and so, you know, I just wanted to bring that out because, you know, that kind of stands out. Like, you know, he was talking about paradise, and then we started talking about HE double hockey sticks. Like, why are the two associated? You know, why did he term it in that manner? And so, yeah, that's to help clarify. All right, 2Esdras 4, 9, and 10. It says, nevertheless, now I have asked thee, but only of the fire, the wind, and the day through thou hast passed of the things from which thou canst not be separated. And yet canst thou not give me no answer to them. I read that already, didn't I? Mm-hmm. All right, so let's go to this answer. You know, and let me have my next reader read 2Esdras 4, 11 through 19.
How shall thy vessel then be able to comprehend the way of the highest, and the world being now outwardly corrupted, to understand the corruption that is evident in my sight. Then said I unto him, it were better that we were not at all, than that we should live still in wickedness, and to suffer, and not to know wherefore. He answered me and said, I went into a forest, into a plain, and the trees took counsel, and said, come, let us go and make war against the sea, that it may depart away from before us, and that we may make us more woods. The floods of the sea also in like manner took counsel, and said, come, let us go up and subdue the woods of the plain, that there also we may make us another country. The thought of the wood was in vain, for the fire came and consumed it. The thought of the floods of the sea came likewise to naught, for the sand stood up and stopped them. If you were judged now betwixt these two, whom wouldest thou begin to justify, or whom wouldest thou condemn? I answered and said, verily, it is a foolish thought that they both have devised. For the ground is given unto the wood, and the sea also hath his place to bear his floods.
Hallelujah. Yeah, so truly that was foolish. A foolish thought. But let us consider verse 11. It speaks, the angel speaks, Uriel, he says, the world being now outwardly corrupted, to understand the corruption. He says, how should thy vessel be able to comprehend the way of the highest, and the world being now outwardly corrupted, to understand the corruption that is evident in my sight? And like, this just kind of stood out to me, because like, from our perspective, the world seemed like it's okay. We grow up here, and we see things as they are, and we're able to live and even thrive in some aspects, and everything seems to be okay. Nevertheless, way back then, Uriel was saying it's evident that the world is corrupted, and the corruption is evident in my sight. And it just goes to show us, like, we don't have an understanding of our own planet. We don't have an understanding of what it's supposed to be like. We're born into this corrupted aspect of it, and because we don't know any different, it seems normal. It seems like that's what it's supposed to be. Yet Uriel is saying it's evidently corrupted. It's plain to see. Like, I can easily see that this is corrupted. But due to our ignorance, we can't plainly see that. And it just goes, it's a very humbling thought. It's just like, when you think you know something. And it reminds me of Job. How Job just so steadfast that, I ain't do nothing wrong. No, nah, I'm righteous. And even though he was to a certain extent, you can only be righteous in what you know. But you don't consider all the things that you don't know, and the lines that you may be crossing because you're ignorant of them. And so some of these lines will open the door, for negativity to enter into your life, and you just don't know. And that's why it's important to read your word, so that you can know all that you can know from Yah, at least, and then, go from there. All right. But also let us consider verse 18. It says, if thou wert now judged betwixt these two, whom wouldest thou begin to justify? And he says, hey, it's a foolish thought. that they both have devised, you know, because they both had a prospective places, you know. And so Uriel answers in verses 20 through 25. He says, then answered he me and said, thou hast given a right judgment, but why judgest thou not thyself also? Like, oh, what, me? Like, yeah, you. He goes on to say, for like as the ground is given unto the wood, the sea to his floods, even so they that dwell upon the earth may understand nothing but that which is upon the earth. And he that dwelleth above the heavens may only understand the things that are above the height of the heavens. Then answered I and said, I beseech thee, O Adonai, let me have understanding. For it was not my mind to be curious of the high things, but of such as pass by us daily, namely wherefore Israel is given up as a reproach to the heathen. And for what cause the people whom thou hast loved is given over unto ungodly nations, and why the Torah of our forefathers is brought to naught, and the written covenants come to non-effect, and we pass away out of the world as grasshoppers, and our life is astonishment and fear, and we're not worthy to obtain mercy? What will he then do unto his name, whereby we are called? Of these things have I asked. Well, I guess he clarified that, didn't he? Verse 26 and 27, Uriel answered, says, then answered he me and said, the more thou searchest, the more thou shalt marvel. For the world hasteth fast to pass away, and cannot comprehend the things that are promised to the righteous in time to come. For this world is full of unrighteousness and infirmities. And he say, hey, you know, you just can't. That's very hard for you to understand at this time. You know, but trust me, there's a great reward. One so great that you couldn't even comprehend the things that are promised to the righteous in time to come. And this reminds me of 1 Corinthians 2:9. It says, but as it is written, I have not seen nor ear heard. And then this is where he hit you. Neither have entered into the heart of man. Never even thought about it, the things which Elohim have prepared for them that love him. We must have quite a wonderful reward coming, you know, for those of us who make it. You know, I included myself in that group. You know, at least that's the plan. You know, but yes, like, we go through a lot in this life, you know, or we can, but it's not for naught. The reward that we'll receive is beyond measure, beyond comparison to the temporal, and it's eternal. You know, it's beyond measure when compared to this temporal existence that we have in this life. You know, let me have my next reader read 2Esdras 4:28 through 32, please.
But as concerning the things whereof thou askest me, I will tell thee, for the evil is sown, but the destruction thereof is not yet come. If therefore that which is sown be not turned upside down, and if the place where the evil is sown pass not away, then cannot it come that is sown with good? For the grain of evil seed hath been sown in the heart of Adam from the beginning. And how much ungodliness hath it brought up unto this time? And how much shall it yet bring forth until the time of threshing come? Ponder now by thyself how great fruit of wickedness the grain of evil seed hath brought forth. And when the ears shall be cut down, which are without number, how great a floor shall they fill?
Hallelujah. So Uriel tells us that evil is sown into the earth, but the destruction that's to come in response to that evil is not yet come. So yes, the evil is sown, but the punishment thereof has not fully come yet. And he says, then cannot it come that is sown with good. You know, the evil has to, you know, fully do its thing And then the good gonna fully do his thing from what he's saying. He says, for the grain of evil seed have been sown in the heart of Adam from the beginning. Now you got to keep in mind that this was pre-Yahshua. This was quite a bit of time before Yahshua came. And so he was talking about that grain of evil seed, you know, that was sown in the heart of Adam. But then you had the second Adam that would come, being Yahshua, you know, and that's that seed of good, you know. Now, he says, how much ungodliness have it brought forth up until this time, and how much shall it bring forth until the time of threshing come? So what are we talking about, the time of threshing? Separation, absolutely. We're talking about threshing is all about separation. It's about separating the wheat from the chaff, so to speak. You know, and so he's saying that there's a time of separation that's coming. There's a time of division that's coming. You know, hence the Messiah, when he came, he says, you know, I come not to bring peace, but a sword. A sword is something you use to divide, to separate. You know, he says, now ponder now by thyself how great fruit of wickedness the grain of evil seed have brought forth. All the wickedness in the world up until now, just think about that. It's due from this evil seed that was sown in the heart of Adam. He said it's without number. Say, think about how great a floor they should feel. It's got to be huge. And we have verses 33 through 36 goes on to say, then I answered and said, how and when shall these things come to pass? Wherefore our year is few and evil. And he answered me, saying, do not thou hasten above the Most Highest, for thy hasten is in vain. Thy haste is in vain to be above him. For thou hast much exceeded. Did not the souls of the righteous ask of these things in their chambers, saying, how long shall I hope on this fashion? When cometh the fruit of the floor of our reward? When are we going to get our reward? You know, and it says, and unto these things Uriel the archangel gave him answer and said, even when the number of seas is filled in you. For he hath weighed the world in the balance. You know, and this is simply another analogy for the 144,000 who's being depicted as the seeds and their children as the harvest. You know, all the seed has to be planted in order to get the fullest harvest. You have to plant all the seeds. So verse 37 says, by measure hath he measured the times, and by number hath he numbered the times, and he doeth not move nor stir them until the said measure be fulfilled. Everything is on Yah's timetable and according to what he put in place. Nothing is by happenstance. Let me have my next reader read verses 38 through 42.
Then answered I and said, O Adonai, that bearest rule, even we all are full of impiety. And for our sakes, peradventure, it is that the floors of the righteous are not filled, because of the sins of them that dwell upon the earth. So he answered me and said, Go thy way to a woman with child, and ask of her when she hath fulfilled her 9 months, if her womb may keep the birth any longer within her. Then I said, No, Adonai, that can she not. And he said unto me, In the grave the chambers of souls are like the womb of a woman. For as a woman that travaileth maketh haste to escape the necessity of the travail, even so do these places haste to deliver those things that are committed unto them.
Hallelujah. So he tells us, for our sakes, it is that the floors of the righteous are not filled. You know, but he said, don't worry. Because the grave, that is the chambers of souls, are like the womb of a woman. It's going to get so full where it's going to have to release. And he says, even so these places haste to deliver those things that are committed unto them. And so at some point, they have to come forth. So you don't even have to worry about it. Let me have my next reader read 2Esdras 4:43 through 50, please.
From the beginning, look, what thou desirest to see, it shall be showed thee. Then answered I and said, if I have found favor in thy sight, and if it be possible, and if I be meet therefore, show me then whether there be more to come than is past, or more past than is to come. What is past I know, but what is for to come I know not. And he said unto me, stand up upon the right side, and I shall expound the similitude unto thee. So I stood and saw, and behold, an hot burning oven passed by before me. And it happened that when the flame was gone by, I looked, and behold, the smoke remained still. After this there passed by before me a watery cloud, and sent down much rain with a storm. And when the stormy rain was past, the drops remained still. Then said he unto me, consider with thyself, as the rain is more than the drops, and as the fire is greater than the smoke, but the drops and the smoke remain behind, so the quantity which is past did more exceed.
Hallelujah. So here it is. Ezra is asking, show me then whether there be more to come than is past, or more past than is to come. And at that time, he said the quantity past did more exceed. But he also acknowledged that he didn't know what was to come. Now, fast forward to our time, we don't know. It may be even. Or there may actually be more to come, or more that has come than has passed. We don't know, because this was so long ago, that there's no way for us to tell. And then we have verse 51 and 52. It says, then I prayed and said, may I live, thinkest thou, until that time? That's the answer. That's the question everybody asking, right? May I live, thinkest thou, until that time? Well, what shall happen in those days? He answered me and said, as for the tokens whereof thou askest me, I may tell thee of them in part. But as touching thy life, I am not sent to show thee, for I do not know it. Mm-hmm. And so like even the angels, even the archangels, they don't know everything. But you have some people think they know everything. Selah. So, 1 Corinthians 13, 9 through 12, it says, for we know in part and we prophesy in part. Now we know why, because Uriel is saying, I may tell you of some things, but I can only tell you of them in part. And so this is just congruent with what Paul teaches in 1 Corinthians 13, 9 through 12. Verse 10 says, but when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away. When I was a child, I spake as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know, even as also I am known. And so this put me in the mind of a revelation that Yah gave me some time ago, as far as teaching his word, and how to go about it. Yeshayahu 28, 9 and 10 says, whom shall he teach knowledge? And whom shall he make to understand doctrine? Them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breast. For precept shall be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little and there a little. See, and when you understand this, you also understand how you can get the fuller picture and how you can understand, have understanding, and it's not gonna be just from one witness. You're gonna have to go and find all the parts and put them together. Say lie. That's all I have for you. Pray it was a blessing.